Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and my children of future ages, this is UnPak'd. I am Adam Pakila. I am very honored to have a friend of mine who's actually the first guest that I will ever have. Hopefully he's not the last. But it's my buddy Nobles. I met Nobles when I moved to Astoria through a mutual friend, and Nobles is an awesome person, always been politically active. And he was nice enough when I was a little out of pocket to let me stay on his couch for a couple weeks.
Pleasure was mine.
So, Nobles, dude, so awesome to talk to you.
It's great to be here too. Honestly, the honor is mine. Packy, I'll tell you, like from day one, you were always legit, hard on your sleeve. I love good people, and good people know good people. Our good buddy Jake Davis that put us together, good people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always here for you. So
Thanks,
whenever
man.
you need me, I got your back, 100%.
Thanks, man. So, again, as of the 30th of June, 2020, we have about 15 total listeners on all 4 of my episodes. So, for those people who hopefully will listen to this in the future, being my children, the point of this entire podcast is essentially to disseminate information, advice for the future generation. You've got a 4-year-old and
5-year-old now.
5-year-old
as of a couple weeks ago, right? And a 2-year-old. That's right.
And a 2-year-old, and I've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, almost
time flies,
5 and
man.
3. So they're not going to really. They're going to read about this type of stuff that we're going through right now. And you know, I recorded my previous episode as kind of a tongue-in-cheek, like, I'm a white guy talking about racial issues, but
which is good because that's the people that should be having this conversation.
I think that everybody should be having this conversation.
Exactly.
And but I wanted to get your opinion on kind of the state of our country, the state of the world right now, politics, and again, the reason why I reached out to you specifically, and we mentioned it a little bit more off camera, is just kind of this fantastic Facebook social media algorithm that obviously kicks things up when you interact with them. And I've been very conscious to only interact with things that don't upset me and actually improve my quality of life and my mental health. And honestly, seeing you campaigning, I guess is the best way to talk about it, or really just interacting with people, has been super positive and super uplifting for me to see like how professional and eloquent and honestly patient you are with some of these not so nice people that you are either friends with or have to associate with. That's honestly why I asked you. It's like, dude, you're so well spoken, and you're like you said, I wear my heart on my sleeve. Like yours is right there next to me, arm in arm.
Yeah, man.
So, dude, lay it on me. Tell me some shit. Come on.
I mean, as you said before, you know, offline, you know, we're definitely living through history right now. It's kind of, I knew this time would be coming again. You know, racism and the rot of our country has never left. We've band-aided it up. We've put lipstick on pigs. We've put it in the closet. But what I like to tell people is that, you know, the one thing that is a silver lining to Trump's presidency is that we're able to see this country for really who we are. And, you know, I think that the advancement of technology, the ability for, you know, certain generations to really adapt to that technology on a mass scale has forced us to open our eyes more and really kind of deal with the issues that were unresolved in the past because they weren't in front of people.
Right.
Now we have no opportunity to close our eyes to it. No matter where you go, you're going to have to see this. You're going to have to figure out who you are within all of this. You know, long story short here, and this is something my dad, you know, likes to tell me every once in a while, is, you know, progress is a long arc. It's a long arc. When you think about that, this country, you know, had slavery 400 years ago to the point today, it would be easy to say that we are super progressed and, you know, everybody's equal, when that is certainly not the case.
No way.
But when you look at a smaller bit of it, you know, from the mid 60s to, you know, early 70s to the civil rights era, and some of those things we're still dealing with today, we still do have progress, even though progress is slow. A lot of times, you know, when it comes to the benefit I was talking about before in terms of our certain generations being brought up in technology, having a force to open our eyes, you know, that's the double-edged sword too, because with that comes instant gratification. And people, like before, like politics and culture move slowly, but now that we have instant gratification, folks that know how to use technology want change instantly.
Right.
And it just doesn't work like that. And I think that a lot of the strife that we're seeing today is a melding of generations from the greatest generation boomers all the way down to Gen Z. And to be honest, like I read something that says that the folks like our kids are going to be called the coronials, because a coronavirus has changed our life. Like it has literally, it's going to change our life for a very long time.
Yeah, it's not going to be the new normal for them. They're not going to recognize, like my kids, my 2-year-old is not going to really understand the lack of PPE or lack of social distancing. Like I think there's going to be some artifacts of this that are going to carry its way on. I mean,
100%.
All these companies are spending money to outfit their stores with certain precautions, and even if it's just tape on the floor or permanent stickers. Or I was in ShopRite today picking up dinner, and they had shower curtains in between each of the aisles.
Get out of here.
So that they were kind of like in their own little cubicle, so that way they kind of self-contained. So like there's going to be certain aspects of that I don't think they're going to go with the shower curtain route, but they're probably going to have like plastic plexiglass partitions up. And
certainly,
much like when we look back on what our parents had to go through, and we're like, that's what a television was. They're going to look at it like, that's how you rode around? That's how you got from place to place? That's how you interact with people? It's going to be so, foreign to them. Yeah. It's only going to be, what, 10, 15 years?
That's exactly right, man. That's exactly right. But you know what's interesting, though, about, I feel like our generation, because, we're damn near 40 now. We're millennials. And people still think of us as kids. It's like, no, man, we're like literally nearing middle age here. And Gen X, too. And even Gen Z too, to a certain extent, because they're coming up right behind us.
Right.
Like it's the reason why I'm active today is because, when I look at my parents being, coming up Jim Crow South, getting their doctorates, fighting in civil rights, getting to where they could, scrapping for everything, to a place where they could give me an amazing life, but still deal with the same shit they were dealing with back then. I looked at myself and like from day one, and day one being like when I got out of college, after fucking around and shit, and being like, what more can I do to make this world better?
Yeah.
And so now I'm at a point in my life where, I got politically active really politically active like 5 years ago. I became an activist, community organizer. What more can I do? What more can I do? And we got to constantly ask ourselves, in this generation, what more can I do to make this world a better place? Because I don't think that parents of like that boomer age, greatest generation age, especially of white privilege, to be honest, really ever thought about what more can I do to make this world and people around me better, versus focusing on what more can I do for myself and my family.
Right.
And I think that technology, again, forcing our eyes open, showing a bigger world, I think that's going to change our mentality of our generation to think more worldly versus more introspectively.
And I think that's, to bring it back to the generational thing, we're kind of in that awesome sweet spot where we had a significant upbringing. We had significant years under our belt before the internet came out about being a thing. And we grew up with the internet. Like when Facebook hit, I was, I think, a junior or a sophomore in college. Like I'm in that fledgling class of social media. I saw the rise and fall of MySpace and Friendster and like all those other things that went by the wayside. And I think the important thing to remember is, because, to harken back to what we were just talking about, our parents' generation, it was 3 channels on television and Walter Cronkite, and this is the news, and that's what it is, and no one questioned it, because you didn't have bloggers, you didn't have Twitter, you didn't have independent journalists with integrity going out and doing the dirty work because you put it on ABC or you put it on CBS.
And that's all you had.
So you also have this fighting of ignorant misinformation. So you just have the people that are going to go into their echo chamber. They're going to go to their Fox News. They're going to go to their CNN. They're going to go to their one place. And I don't think any one avenue is the right avenue. I think you have to use a shotgun rather than a scalpel approach.
100%.
You need to spread that wide so you can see a lot of perspectives and a lot of information coming in, and you can, with a discerning mind, filter that type of stuff out. Because
100%.
Again, with this instant gratification thing, like you were talking about before, people are going to get stuff wrong. And they're going to get 100%. Stuff wrong, not intentionally, but just because the news cycle is so damn quick. You got to be first. You got to get clicks. Like, they're businesses too. So you need to make sure that you're realizing that, okay, what's the motive behind this? You know, when I read scientific articles for my job, who's funding this? Is it a university or is it a organization? And who funds the organization? Is the organization an anti-vax organization, which is why this thing might be tangentially related to why vaccines cause autism. I hope by the time that my kids are old enough, they still realize that they don't. But like those types of questions, if you're asking those types of questions, you're already a step ahead of the game, as opposed to just everything at face value.
100%. And you're going against an innate nature in yourself to confirm your confirmation bias, you know? And the thing about this is that, you know, humans are still animals. People don't really think that because we've got all this cool shit. We are still animals. We still act on behavior and something innate that's like within us that you can't even start to like quantify scientifically, you know? And when you think about that, you could put in racism there. You could put in, you know, confirmation bias there, you know, all of these like internal defense metrics of gravitating towards your own, of, you know, not really seeking out new opportunities and experiences, right? Like all of these things are premortal within us, and it's a muscle in our brains that we need to actively exercise, where we need to get over those things and keep at it. And yeah, it's exhausting, you know, being able to see beyond white privilege, for instance, it's going to be exhausting, but that's something that, you know, I don't have the privilege to do. I wear it on my skin. So for me, yeah, it's exhausting in a different way. But for folks that need to deal with that, like, it's going to take every day of active leaning into it. Right. So a lot of these things, we have many barriers like that in our brains because we're animals. And to get over those things, you have to practice and find those opportunities to do so.
I think it's really interesting what you were just talking about with white privilege. And I had this thought. It's kind of along the same lines as white privilege, Black Lives Matter, Colin Kaepernick. I'm just going to use one kind of analogy to summarize.
Sure.
It's not about the thing you're not saying. When I say that you have white privilege, it doesn't mean that you had an easy life. It just means you're afforded certain privileges that other non-white people don't have. The same thing. When you say Black Lives Matter, we're not saying it like all lives matter has been bastardized. It's been bastardized as kind of like a rallying call for people that have, you know, latent or blatant racism. So
it's been co-opted.
It's been co-opted. When you say all lives matter after Black Lives Matter, it's not that, it's not like we're saying white people don't matter and Chinese people don't matter and all these other people don't matter. It's just that right now, this is the focus. This is what 100%. We're talking about. And Colin Kaepernick, same thing. It's not that he's kneeling, but he also went to and consulted with military personnel, former vets, that said, listen, this is what I want to do. What would be the most respectful? And they said, don't do this, don't do this. Kneeling would probably be the best. All right, so let's do that. And they're like, you're disrespecting the flag. Like, you're missing the point. The point is, it's to bring light to police brutality. All lives matter. You're missing the point. It's about this systemic oppression of this specific race of people, this specific ethnicity. And then again, it's not that you had an easy life. It's just that you're afforded certain privileges. And again, to what you said before, how can I make this better? How can I possibly use that privilege to help other people?
And that's what I think is different this time around. I think this time around, there's enough mass of people that are starting to understand how to flex that muscle of getting over their comfort of privilege, of, you know, keeping their eyes shut to the injustices of this world, versus folks that are happy to be like, you know, all lives matter, instant gratification. We're done here, right? This racism thing's done. Like, there's a lot of
I'm
those
not racist,
people.
so all lives matter, and that's it.
We're done. We're done.
Exactly.
It's confirmation bias, cognitive dissonance, everything kind of mixed up, instant gratification, all of it in a soup with that. But I think there's more people now. There's more people than those people that are really taking a critical look at the systemic racism issues and really trying to think about what they can do, you know, even if it's for the short term, to help. And this is going to happen again. Black folks will be killed in mass media by the cops again. It's going to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to fix this in one night.
No.
But maybe there's going to be even more people the next time. And then
Right.
maybe when our kids grow up, it's going to be so rare that they're not having this conversation anymore. They're talking about other things, like how to cure cancer, for instance.
Right.
So it's like, we just have to advance the ball. Progress is a long arc.
Yeah. There was you know who Daryl Davis is?
I don't.
He is, he's a little bit controversial just because some people took the fact that he went on a bunch of conservative podcasts or some libertarian podcasts or had some events. But essentially, he is a Black Southern jazz musician who has talked a dozen or more people out of the Ku Klux Klan.
Oh, okay. I think I know the fellow you're talking about.
And think what you want about him. Think what you want about everything that he did. But the thing that stuck out to me the most was the fact that it wasn't a drink. It wasn't a phone call. It wasn't a sit down, one meeting with one Klan member. And they were like, you know what? Black people are awesome. I've been wrong my entire life. Let's go have a drink. It took months of just kind of pounding and asking questions and being observant of their responses and meeting with empathy and all those types of things. And that's, to harken back to the instant gratification thing, you're not going to change hearts and minds like that. It's just not going to happen. You got to put the blood, the sweat, and the tears in. And ultimately, like you said, like the tide is starting to turn. When we're looking back, I'm not really the biggest fan of cancel culture, but when we can look back and look at the things that we did prior to this 10, 15-year span of things that we thought were completely innocuous, and we look back, we're like, holy crap, I went to a Thug Life party and I thought it was perfectly fine to dress in blackface. Because I was a thug. And like people did that in my college. We had parties like that. And it was always odd to me. Like, why do you have to alter your physical appearance for like a random beer party with your friends? Why would you have to do that type of stuff? But it happened. And now if you look back, my hope would be the people that participated in that were like, man, I was a fucking idiot. Like I should not have done that. That was really bad. So even that, taking that seemingly innocent, shitty, stupid mistake, they can look back and they're like, all right, now I know that was wrong and I'm going to move forward from that and I'm going to try to be a better person. They're not going to they're not going to dig their heels in and be like, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not racist. We're fine. We're just going to keep moving on.
Yeah, hopefully that's the thing, but then that goes back to that confirmation bias where you said it again, where it's like the person's like, oh, I'm not racist. So that couldn't have been that bad. So nothing really needs to change here.
Right.
So, but the thing is, like, again, like, I think that those people are becoming less and less and less, the further we progress here. Like personally, me, I hate Facebook. I absolutely hate the fucking platform. Like I'm in marketing, that, like I do Lysol's media. And my company didn't necessarily do the boycott. We don't have any Facebook activity right now, but if we did, I would definitely be like, we need to boycott Facebook and pull our money out. I absolutely hate Facebook. I hate needing to be on that channel. But to your point about the fellow that you just brought up with the Klan, it's like you have to go where the most minds can be changed. And when I go into debates with hardcore, cult 45 members, because they're in a cult. That's what I like to call it. They're just not seeing anything. When I go against, faux libertarians that, they call themselves libertarian, but they're not really open to making sex work legal or legalization of marijuana. That's not libertarian. When I go into those places and I talk to those people, I'm not talking to them to change their minds. I'm talking to them to change people reading our conversations.
Oh, that's very intelligent.
And that's the only reason why I'm still on Facebook, and the only reason why I'm talking to some of these knuckleheads is because I want to change more people by reading the conversation than trying to change that one person's mind. Because nothing better to change someone's like outlook and mindset on the world than to find someone that they identify with and just bring out the complete rot in them for all to see, and they'll start to really become more self-aware themselves. That's the only reason why I'm still there.
That is so, again, very intelligent, very well said. Like, that's a very smart approach. I think I am obviously, it's in the Bill of Rights, big proponent of freedom of speech. I
Me
don't think
too.
you should censor people because, like you just said, you bring out the rot. And yeah, that person might not change.
Right.
But their fence-sitting followers, the people that were not really sure, like, he kind of said some messed up stuff, but I believe like 95% of stuff that he says, you start chipping away at that, and they're just sitting there and they're just reading, and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe that this guy has said that. And like, I had a moment like that with a person I'm friends with who I know through, you know, social circles. And he's always kind of hedged his comments by saying that you can never really catch him in anything. He's never said anything like blatantly racist. He's always been like, when he's like, oh, good. Like
dog whistles.
Yeah. He said something like a protest. Perfect example. When George Floyd was murdered, that's exactly what it was. It was murdered. He was like, well, he shouldn't have been breaking the law. I was like, okay, let's quantify this. Let's say he actually did knowingly pass a $20 counterfeit bill. Is that a death sentence? He goes, thugs are thugs. Criminals are criminals. Black, white, Asian, Latino, doesn't matter. I go, okay, fine. You quantified that. You changed what I thought you were going to say. Like, he was a thug because he's a black criminal. And you just said, no, all white trash, like anyone that breaks the law. Okay, fine. But then it came about that there was a completely peaceful protest. And granted, I didn't see the video, but I can't remember where it was, where a peaceful protest happened and some guy went in there with an automatic or semi-automatic weapon and lit off like a dozen shots. And there was a video of people running around screaming in a park where there's constant protests.
Peaceful protest. Yeah.
I think it was right around where Breonna Taylor was murdered. Like that precinct, there's a park over there. And he was like, good, serves them right. I go, okay, stop. This is not a protest where there's rioting and looting. This is not a protest where they're marching on the Capitol or marching to the mayor's house.
Brandishing is illegal.
Exactly. They're sitting in a park, a public place, and a person comes in that's a gunman and fires on them and possibly kills them. I don't know. It doesn't matter. And you're like, good. I'm like, now I see the forest for the trees. Now I see who you are. And had this platform, had he been silent, he's been banned from Facebook a whole bunch of time, but had this platform been silenced, now I'm like, I see it. I see it. And I don't need, there's no lines that need to be read between. So the fact that you're sitting there and saying, no, I'm not engaging because I want to change this person's mind. I want to change. It's you know, economy of words. You're probably going to change more people's mind by engaging with that guy than if you were just block him or not pay attention to him or something to that effect.
And you're an educator, so you can totally understand that, you know, you got to teach people how to critically think again, unfortunately. Like, you know, as a piece of this hyper technological world, people have kind of lost their ability to critically think about things because they want to lean on peer review or Google or something like that. Like, we need to learn to critically think again. And so when I engage with these people, I always drop tidbits of information in my posts, like recognizing the tool of misinformation and propaganda, like whataboutism, sea lioning, pigeon chess.
Please, okay. We started talking about this a couple of weeks ago.
I think so, right?
Yes, I love the sea lining. I had never heard that. Chess I had heard of. Please,
you got to know how to identify
all those terms. Please.
Yes. So you got to know how to identify the tools of a con or the tools of a hypocrite to be able to negate their arguments. And it's really not that hard either.
There's a playbook, and you just kind of follow it.
I mean, the one that you just talked about, for instance, for hypocrisy, the number one tool that's usually used is whataboutism, where if you say, you know, something was bad, they're like, well, yeah, that's bad, but what about this, to try to normalize something. Whataboutism, number one. Sea lioning is when people, you know, want to ask you, you know, well, what's the source on this? You know, are you sure that number's correct? And they're the only ones like asking you data but every single time you ask them data, they got nothing. And so they're trying to trap you in data, but they don't care about the data. So sea lioning is like, just like clapping your hands, and sea lying is a really interesting pop culture word, but it's very true, and it's a tool of a con. Pigeon chess is when you trap someone in an argument and they clearly see how hypocritical they are or how wrong they are, and they knock over the board, basically. They say, I don't want to play this anymore. You're a liberal tool. I'm out of here. Right? You know, Hillary Clinton, blah, blah, blah. Right? And the reason why it's called pigeon chess is because it's like trying to play chess with a pigeon. You're actually trying to play chess, and this fucking thing takes its wing and flips over the board. So, you know, what are the rules? So there's a whole bunch of other ones like that. You need to understand what those things are to be more effective on the social media landscape to protect your critical thinking.
Right. And when you can identify those things as a conscientious observer, then that even helps discredit the person who you are sitting there and possibly before agreeing with. Or, you know, again, maybe you're on the fence about him and you weren't sure. Like, oh, he made a good point. And then you see, like, for me, even if I agree with you, if you do a whataboutism, I am immediately turned off to your point. And I would
100%.
not go to you and have a conversation with you. It'd be the same thing as, let's say you and I got into an argument. We're friends. But if all of a sudden I made a personal attack on you, you won the argument.
Ad hominem, right?
If I was sitting there and we're talking about, you know, a political issue, and I'm like, yeah, dude, but you can't fucking hold your liquor, you pussy. Like, you're like, okay, that has nothing. That's not even a whataboutism. That's like a what are you talking about?
It's ad hominem. Yeah, personal attacks.
So if you can identify those things, again, teaching people again how to be critical thinkers is extremely important. And you know, my dad had this question with me the other day and he was flabbergasted by my response. He goes, you know, I can't believe all these people are sitting here on, you know, the news and they're acting like, what is Selma and what is Tulsa and why is it such a problem that Trump, I'm like, Dad, I grew up in one of the best school districts in the entire country. And
didn't teach that shit.
I didn't know about Selma. I didn't learn. Now, granted, this is not to detract from his amazing legacy by any stretch of the imagination. But I didn't learn that Martin Luther King had extramarital affairs. That doesn't matter, but it would have been nice to know so I could get the entire picture. So why are we not learning about Selma? Like, we learned about Rosa Parks. I don't even think we learned, aside from maybe a day in Black History Month in February.
Or Tulsa Massacre.
Like,
or them bombing people in Philly. Right.
We didn't learn about any of that stuff. So it's that.
I mean, there's been an assault on education. As an educator, you know that. There's been an assault on education, systematic assault, federal government-wise, local in a lot of areas. I mean, I would say most areas, there's been an assault on education. And it's become from both ways. It's been top down in terms of defunding education, and it's been bottom up in terms of teachers that, you know, don't really care. There's a lot of those, you know, and it's sad because I think that with all of this, the macro takeaway here is that we've lost our ability to have good faith debates and conversations. Bad faith is the modus operandi right now. Ad hominem attacks, as you brought up before, in terms of attacking people personally, all of these different tools of cons that are being used in arguments. People aren't able to recognize, to your point, in a way, like, if you attack me personally, some people would love that. And they'd be like, oh, he won. He definitely won that argument, right? And it's because people have lost the ability to understand what a good faith conversation is. We need to bring that back. That's the only way we're going to save this country, is to have very clear good faith conversations.
I could not agree more. So let's pivot for a little bit.
Yeah, man.
You got very politically active, you said, about 5 years ago. Right now, you're, I think, last I read, that you were in the lead for the office that you're running for.
I should know this week if I completely won, but I'm about 52% right now.
Dude, congratulations early. Thanks, I hope it lasts all the way through.
Me too.
for people that are kind of fed up right now, fed up with everything. They're throwing their hands up because of COVID. They're throwing their hands up because of the, you know, the racial tension and the division within the country. How do you try to get people politically motivated and active? What are you doing? I know you're literally boots on the ground type of guy. So
I'm in the streets. Look, the thing I say is, if I give them the shock treatment first, I say, you know, I have a bunch of different things in my deck of cards, but the one that I usually go to is, it's easier to roll over you and take your rights away if you're not participating. And if you're leaning back, you're not trying to stay on top of things, that's what they want. They want you to lean back because it's easy to take you over. You need to still pay attention. If that doesn't get to them, then, like, I kind of try to feel out where they are. And it's like, look, I mean, everybody needs a break. I totally get that. I might be a masochist, so I'm reading news every minute of every hour of the day, because we're living through history, to your point. And I don't want to, like, I want to record everything in my head to tell my kids. But I can definitely understand if people need to take a break. But if people, like, completely lean out, like, you know, you need to participate in this economy. You need to in this economy, in this, in our culture. Like, it just blows my mind, you know, how people don't think that voting actually matters. It matters immensely. And if you don't think voting matters, then volunteer, get in the streets, like, talk to people. You know, you will see how much that matters in changing people's minds, that face-to-face conversation. And if you don't think that that matters, then fucking donate some money then, man, because that someone will put it to good use then, at least.
Right.
But, like, you know, leaning out, I mean, I'm a Democrat, and I'm more than Democrat. I'm like a progressive left-leaning Democrat here. And, you know, for me, what I'm seeing right now from the hard right wing, which is basically the entire Republican Party, because, you know, Trump is their focal point, he is their leader, that is fascism to the extreme. Like, and it's going to be easy to roll over people if they're not in the streets protesting for Black lives, if they're not, you know, online debating some of these knuckleheads, you know, to try to point out some of the hypocrisy. If we're not doing those things, it's going to be easy. What's that saying? You know, you probably know this saying as an educator. Like, first they came for the Jews and it didn't affect me. Then they came for, yeah, and I didn't do anything. Then they came for so-and-so and I didn't do anything.
Then they came for my neighbor, I didn't do anything. And then they came for me, too late.
That's exactly what it is. I never want to get to a point where someone's coming for the first rung of that. Like, I am on the front line for that. And the unfortunate thing about our politics right now, and not politics as a whole, honestly, this is only coming from one side, is that they're tying cultural issues to politics, like religion, race, wearing a fucking mask, for God's sakes, like the plague. Like, they're tying all of this to politics. A plague is not political. It's going to kill us all if we're not, you know, careful.
It's indiscriminate.
Here.
Yeah.
It's indiscriminate. You should not be tying this to politics. Wear a fucking mask, right? And it's like, you know, all of these things, you know, are coming together right now to a head. We have a chance to change this. And it's not a lost hope, but the instant gratification is getting a lot of people to lean the fuck back. They need to understand we're in this for the long haul. It's our fight now. This is our world that we need to actually mold. This is your responsibility as a human, as an American. Get in the streets, do something about this.
That's Very well said. Very well said, man. And what is your office that you're running for?
Thank you for asking, because nobody ever knows. Okay, it's called State Committee. It's a very small position within the Democratic Party, but it's extremely important. Even Republicans have a state committee. It's extremely important. The State Committee does 4 key things. First thing they do is that they create the platform for the party. So if we're talking about legalization of marijuana, healthcare as a human right, doubling down on education funding and more teachers, raising the minimum wage, you can put all of those things into a platform. The State Committee votes on that platform. So I'm one of 300 people in New York that would be voting on that platform, that any state politician, Chuck Schumer, Kristen Gillibrand, Andrew Cuomo, Letitia James, they'd have to run on this platform. So if I can get even making, sex work legal, for instance, which I think is we should be doing that, right?
Yes, sex work, of course,
regulate it, right? That's not going to get in next year's platform, I guarantee you. But I would vote for that, So I'm at the table now, if I have this position, which again I'm hopeful. Second thing they do is that they choose who the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, if you're on that state committee, endorses for state races. So when Cuomo was going in Cynthia Nixon, for instance, in the New York governor race, there was a question, because there had been more progressives on the state committee, if the state committee was going to endorse Cynthia Nixon over Cuomo, who is the incumbent governor. Cuomo handily took her out when it came to that vote. But for me, I'm not going to support any politicians that don't think healthcare is a human right and to make universal healthcare in this state by any means necessary. I don't give a shit if it's single payer. I don't give a shit if it's Medicare for all, but healthcare is a human right and we need to make that happen. There's certain things that I will not support a state politician for in my official capacity as state committee if they don't meet. The third thing they do is that they choose the delegates that go to the presidential convention. This was going to be extremely important if Bernie Sanders had brought this to a brokered convention where the delegates would choose who the Democratic nominee would be. Again, Republicans have this too. So that's extremely important in election years. I wouldn't have done that this year. I would do that if I'm reelected. But that's extremely important.
You wouldn't have done it because you're too new?
No, I wouldn't have done that because that meeting already happened. There's only 2 meetings a year. There's only 2 meetings a year for state committee. So I can still have my full-time job, and it's a volunteer position, but it still requires an election because you want to represent the people that are in your area in the party. Right. And then you guys
didn't have to do the state committee thing because Bernie bowed out as opposed.
That's correct. Well, they still get to choose the delegates, but the delegates aren't as important anymore because Biden's the
That's what I meant. That's what I meant.
Yeah. But they still choose the delegates. They still vote on the delegates.
Okay.
And then the last thing they do is in the event of death, resignation, or kicked out, they vote on who the person would be that replaces a state official. So if Schumer or Gillibrand or Cuomo or Letitia James does any of those 3, dies, resigns, or kicked out of office, the state committee has a special session where the 300 members come together, or any of the 300 members that decide to show up, because honestly, a lot of times these people don't show up, and they vote on who would replace them. So I'll give you a funny wackadoo scenario. Mm-hmm. Let's say Cuomo, let's say he resigns from office, right? Mm-hmm. We get together in a special session, and I'm like, hey guys, I think I would be an awesome governor. Mm-hmm. And, people would be like, you know what? Nobles is a pretty chill dude. Let's make him governor. It would happen. Now, if it was a Republican governor, the Republican state committee would be able to choose that.
Okay.
But since Cuomo's a Democrat, this Democratic state committee will choose who goes in there. So those are the 4
you guys don't have, so the state committee doesn't have like a hierarchy, like the president to the vice president to the secretary to the
there is a hierarchy, but we're all equal in our votes in a way. There is an executive board too that the governor appoints people to, but that gets all kind of crazy and stuff.
But I'm saying, like, if something were to happen to Cuomo, a successor wouldn't automatically just jump in. Like, he would
lieutenant governor would take over for the time. In our state laws, the lieutenant governor would take over for a time being until we were able to appoint a successor. Okay. Yeah.
And that wouldn't be one of those 2 sessions a year. That would probably be a special session. You guys.
That's a special session, right, where we all get back together. Yep. Yeah, man.
Look, I one catastrophe away from being Governor Nobles.
I mean, dude, if that happens, I promise you, I will do well for the state. But Packy, I mean, you're a smart dude. You've got a good heart. Your mind is set. You should really think about running for something, brother. I'm serious. There's probably small positions in your neighborhood you could run for.
And that's honestly where I would probably be more apt to be politically active.
Yeah.
In your capacity, it would be like on a small local thing. And I actually got into a conversation with a friend of mine, probably my longest and best friend since I was 3 years old, about the board of education in my own town.
Dude, yes.
I sat there looking at it and I go, just as, like, working in special ed, if anyone is listening, the easiest thing to do is not the best thing to do, even morally or financially. Okay. So specifically with this is like this is my hill. Okay. I'm not going to die on it, but this is my soapbox moment.
Put your flag on it, baby.
Exactly. So I work in special ed. A lot of kids can't be serviced by the school district that they're in, so they have to be outplaced. Mm-hmm. The general cost of an outplacement for one student, because it has to go to a state-approved special ed school, which is privately funded through tuition, essentially, which is really paid for by the school districts that the kids are coming from, is anywhere between $75,000 and $125,000 a year for one kid. Okay. That's
more than Harvard.
Yeah. Not to mention, you have to get them there somehow. Oh, so Jesus. If we're busing them within Trumbull, they're just going to be on the bus. But if we have to bus them 45 minutes away to a private school that can satisfy their needs, then we have to figure out a button. Maybe we've got one of those short buses that can go there because there's another kid on it, or maybe we got a contract with an outside provider. So the program that I work on at Fairfield, we have, as of right now, 15 students. We had to outplace a couple of them this year just because we couldn't meet their needs. My administrator has been trying for probably the past 5 years, since before I started working there, to get a specific site for a community-based program. If we had a site, we wouldn't have to outplace these people. We've outplaced 4 people over the course of the 3 years that I've been there. Let's just cut the difference. We'd say $100,000. That's $400,000 a year.
It's a taxpayer issue.
And you know how much it would cost?
And a humanity issue.
You know how much it would cost to rent a space in the town? You wouldn't need any more staff. You wouldn't need any more staff. Rent a space in the town, $50,000 a year. So for an eighth of the price, you can sit, and then, by the way, that compounds exponentially. So it's $50,000 a year. And then those 4 years that they're in there, you save all that money. And this is just constantly, the budget is just constant with these people. And I'm sitting here looking, 57-year-old white female, 63-year-old white male, been in 43-year-old male that's been in the education system for 20 plus years. They're old guard. And it's like this simple little thing. It's always, when it comes to school districts, a lot of it is financial, honestly. I think that's what I'm talking about. But a lot of it is the squeaky wheel is going to get the grease because we don't want them to sue us. We don't have to go through a due process. We don't have to go through a settlement because we might lose. So we're just going to give them that XYZ thing that maybe the kid doesn't need, or maybe the kid does need and we don't want to pay for it. We want to fight him in this. So it's a weird chess match that districts play. But ultimately, it should come down to what's best for the student. And I think what's best for the student, 9 times out of 10, and there's a reason there's a law for this, is the least restrictive environment that's closest to their home environment. So yeah, the least restrictive environment might be 45 minutes away. But if we have the means to do it in the home.
To make it, right, in the home.
Let's do it, man. So it has not crossed my mind. It has definitely crossed my mind about that type of stuff.
You should honestly think about it, dude, because honestly, a lot of people in the position right now, like in the government positions, are too easy to keep doing things the way that they've been done.
Yeah.
Like, this is a new fucking world. And if you're not ready to step up to the challenge to change your mind to be there, then step the fuck down and let someone that's ready to meet these challenges step up. We need to, I mean, this is why I tell people too, it's like, I got no problems against teacher unions, but I do have a problem if they're being used incorrectly, for instance. There could be a lot of waste within that, you know? They're like unions, like some unions haven't met that challenge of modern, like modern society and the way that we do things, even though there is a clear place for unions in our society, right? And it's like, look, I don't think that anything's sacred that you can't touch. You have to take a critical eye to it. But at the same time, too, make sure that you focus on what matters. Like what you said, the students matter, right? So when you're doing any changes to, public education funding, to union, to the way the union operates, keep the kids in the center. Keep the teachers in the center. And anything outside of that is just, it's just distraction. And like, we need to take a critical eye to these things. Even like entitlements, which is like quote unquote off limits, to Democrats and stuff like that. No one that I talk to that's a progressive thinks that entitlements are off limits. There's a lot of waste in them. It doesn't mean chop everything up. It means reimagine them. And then like, let's start talking about our defense budget. Let's start talking about the NYPD budget, for instance. Like if we cannot hold things to be sacred and be hypocritical, we need to look at all in modern eyes. And if these people are not willing to do that, run for office, take them out. I really think you should run for office, Packy. I think you got it. I think you got it honest. And I'd be happy to donate to your campaign and volunteer any way possible I could.
See, you're just such a politician, man. You're so uplifting and positive.
I mean, we can change the stigma of the word politician to actually make people believe again.
Oh, I didn't mean that as a negative. I didn't mean
no, I know. But the people that are listening, probably, it's a politician. No. It's like, we got to change that stigma. We need to work for these people.
In the state committee, I mean, I don't know a lot about kind of like the different levels within, state government and stuff. Is it a relatively young kind of quandary of people, or is it kind of
state committee is the most machine politics of machine politics in New York? Me as an activist outside first, in the time that I was an activist, I also realized that, you can still be an activist within the machine politics of it. You just got to kick down some doors and take it. So for me to run, like I've been a part of my Democratic club for about 3 years now, but I've been an activist for about 6 in my area. And so now I'm kind of both. I'm in the machine, but I'm still an activist and a progressive. It's not mutually exclusive. You don't have to be one or the other. You can be both. It just takes time to do it right. And so most of the people in state committee are machine politics, where it's like, well, this person was next in line, so they're going to fucking take it. And that person that took it is only there for the title. They're not really there to do the work. I'm definitely not that guy. I don't really give a shit about those people. I'm very savvy when it comes to, politics, and I can't wait to get on the inside and start changing the party for the better in that regard, making these deals and things like that, compromising and pushing things forward. Because again, progress is a long arc. I don't plan on, going anywhere or using this to go to some other office here. I really want to fix our party first.
That's awesome. And I think that being in the machine is probably going to be able to, for you, you'll be able to affect the most change.
Yeah, 100%, man. That's exactly what it's about.
Because now you don't have to worry about being the activist that tries to bend the ear of the person on the committee. You're that person on the committee, and you're probably going to be a little bit easier to bend for the people that share the activism that you're already, a huge proponent of. So they now have an ally in the machine that's working to actively change the issues that, are being seen within, the people that you're being active with. That's awesome.
That's right. That's right, man. So that's why you should run for something, dude. You should get all up in that because you're in the education system already.
What is it? If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything? Is that what it is?
Fall for anything. Exactly.
I stand for plenty of stuff. So, dude, this was a fantastic conversation. I don't think
thanks for having me.
All of them, but this was great. I definitely want to talk to you again. And
for sure.
When that line that your dad said,
progress is a long arc.
Progress is a long arc. I think that's going to be the title of this. Definite title. Yes. Do you want to leave any closing thoughts? Anything you want to say on the out?
Just vote. You need to vote. You need to vote every year in every election. Get your kids to vote. Get your friends to vote. Stand up for society. We need you to vote. To the 16 people, hopefully, that are going to be listening to this, we need you to vote, volunteer. Like, you need to participate and lean into this world, in the politics, because we need you. That's it.
Change the machine from within.
Yes, sir.
Nobles, brother. Thank you so much, man.
I love you, Packy. You're the best, dude.
I'll talk to you later.
All right. Later.